And this is absurd. $1 trillion every year is spent on advertisement. And just look at the fight that's now been going on between Apple and Samsung on the question of smartphones. Instead of sharing new inventions to raise the general level of mobile communication, they sue the crap out of each other just for the profit of their company. I mean, just think of what would have happened if the guy who came up first with the wheel patented it and sued everybody to prevent everybody from using it, or fire, or electricity. I mean, we would still be living in trees. Socialists would argue for a society that is exactly the opposite. We want to replace the capitalist chaos caused by private ownership over the means of production and the constant race of profit through a society where we use our collective knowledge and our collective skills to democratically run the economy. This is the basic idea of socialism, a democratically planned economy based on human need and not on profit for a tiny elite. This would mean that on our workplaces, we would be the ones in charge. Democratically elected committees would make decisions, not bosses. It would mean that the questions of production, like what shall we produce, how much shall we produce, will be decided democratically by the workers of a company in collaboration with workers who work in the same sector and with experts who have like an overview over the demand in the country. And don't tell me that workers are not capable of running workplaces. 40% of bankruptcies in the private sector are due to personal management mistakes. And again, my buddy Engels writes that the capitalist has no further social function than that of pocketing dividends, tearing off coupons, and gambling on stock exchange. And this is true. Huge banks employ people with supernatural skills to help them deciding on business issues. A huge Austrian bank just recently had a seminar on astrology and investment, where they basically had this idea that because how the stars look, you get an idea on how to invest. It's completely irrational. Before I left Austria, I saw an advert for a dice that you can roll, and it did not have numbers on it, but it had words on it, which said hire, fire, invest, and the slogan was to make decisions easier. That is how capitalism runs. And it's completely irrational. It's not that the managers or the bosses are just the man for the job or that they're qualified or whatever. They're not. And can anybody honestly say that this is a more effective way of organizing a society than to use the collective knowledge and the collective skills of the people who actually run the economy? Engels compares taking the means of production in our own collective hands to the taming of natural phenomena and to use them for the good of society. He writes, the difference is that between the destructive force of electricity in the lightning and electricity under command in the telegraph. It's the difference between a conflagration and the fire working in the service of man. This is the difference between the means of production, the economy being in the hands of a few individuals used for profit, and the means of production owned collectively by the working class and used for the good of society. In a socialist society, we could reduce the working hours to 20, 15, or even lower hours per week by using technical progress and distributing the necessary labor. Under capitalism, one part of society burns itself out, works overtime, and suffers under constant stress, while others get sucked into long-term unemployment and become more and more alienated from society. New inventions which can replace human workforce are used to fire people if they are cheaper than human labor, instead of reducing everyone's working hours. Many jobs that we have in capitalism are not necessary or could be mechanized. There are already techniques for completely automated factories which just have to be overviewed by a few people on monitors. There is no necessity for humans to work on a production line. A huge amount of cleaning tasks could be automated. And of course, in such a society, there would still be jobs or tasks to be made which would suck. But we could collectivize them. It's not a big deal if you help with the sanitation works in your community once a month or once every 2 months. It is a big deal if you have to do it all your life to pay the rent, to survive, and to feed your family. And there are people who would say that under socialism there would be no motivation to work. but this is like thought from the capitalist point of view, where the only motivation that we have to work is survival. In fact, motivation to create and to be active, to work together, is something deeply human. But the daily horror and struggle of survival, the capitalism makes us forget that. We are forced to compete on every level, compete for grades, compete for jobs, compete for survival. The machine of capitalism squeezes out every motivation and creativity that's of no use for the day-to-day profit. I mean, just take a look at our education system, where children enter school very excited, and most teenagers enter like college or university very excited about learning, and so on. And on the other hand, I'm studying now to become a teacher, and I know many people who also study to become a teacher, and they are enthusiastic about becoming teachers. They want to like educate and not be like the teachers that they had, which were authoritarian. They want to like work together with the kids. They just want to be like the guy in that post society. But still, you have a situation where both sides enter a system with the best intentions and leave it completely frustrated. Teachers hate their students, and students hate their teachers. And this is not because of human nature, obviously, but because of a system which is completely authoritarian, anti-democratic, and only is basically is orientated on the capitalist society that we live in. It's not human nature which makes us egocentric, power-hungry, and blind for the needs of others around us. It's a system that we live in. I have already talked about democracy, how democracy could push the economy in a manner that we only can try to imagine. But under socialism, democracy would be an aspect of our day-to-day life. Neighborhoods and communities and workplaces would set up communities and workplaces would set up committees where the representatives come directly out of the communities and can be recalled at any time. The committees would link up on a regional level, on a national level, if there's still something like nation states, and even on a higher level. In this sense, politics would be abolished, because everybody would be a politician in the sense of taking part in decision making, in taking part of making decisions that affect your own life. Engels again put it in a way. He said that the government of persons is replaced by the administration of things and by the conduct of processes over production. I think that's a great point. But socialism means nothing if it just remains a nice idea in our heads, or this reflex that Engels talked about. The question is, how do we get there? And the idea of workers' democracy, socialism, and democratic control of the economy is nothing that Marxists or socialists made up in their mind, thinking that it would be a great idea and let's try that. It came out of the workers' movement. It was tried hundreds of times. And just to give you an impression, here are some examples where workers took matters in their own hands, taking over workplaces, organizing communities in democratic committees, and abolishing capitalist relations in revolutionary uprisings. Paris 1871, St. Petersburg 1905 and 1917, Vienna 1918, Budapest 1919, Munich 1919, Turin 1919, Belfast 1920, Barcelona 1936, Athens 1945, Budapest 1966, Paris 1968, Lisbon 1974, Tehran 1979, Gdansk 1980, Chiapas 1994, Buenos Aires 2001, Tunis 2010, Cairo 2011. Every decade of the 20th century, and also up until now the 21st century, has had its revolutionary situations. And throughout the history of capitalism, workers tried to overthrow it. Marx wrote that the struggle of the proletariat to overthrow capitalism begins with its existence. We can, as socialists, we can build on these lessons of more than 150 years of class struggles. We see how movements which do not have a decisive influence of revolutionary socialists who learned the lessons of history run against the same walls over and over again. We have to put forward concrete demands which show a way to socialism. Like cancel student debt, slash military spending, nationalize the top 500 companies which basically rule the world and put them under workers' control. The necessity of putting forward a clearly formulated alternative to this rotten system, to fight for concrete demands, becomes more and more important. It will become a question of our day-to-day lives, and for many it's already a question of life and death. Revolutions have always been the engine of history, and today we're only on the beginning of a new era, an era of catastrophic crises, economic crisis, social crisis, and environmental crisis, but we are also on the beginning of an era of colossal struggles. Workers' uprisings and revolutionary situations will be a common feature of this era. Just look at what had happened in the last days in South Africa. In such situations, workers will form their own structures, strike committees, defense committees, committees to distribute goods. They will experience that they don't need bosses to run the factory. They don't need bourgeois governments to run society. And the task of socialism then is to fight for this kind of workers' power, to link these committees, making them a counterpart to the existing state apparatus, strong enough to smash it to pieces. And imagine if all of the people all over the world organizing themselves in revolutionary socialist organizations, exchanging experiences and conclusions from different struggles around the world, intervening in social movements, strikes and occupations, fighting for socialist change. That's what the Committee for Workers International is all about. We are an international revolutionary socialist organization active in 45 countries around the world on every continent. Our goal is to overthrow capitalism on a worldwide scale and to fight for worldwide socialism. If you agree with our ideas and perspective, and if you're not a member yet of Socialist Alternative and the CWI, you should definitely consider joining us in this fight. Thanks.